are live. How's it going?
Oh, mate, I'm really well.
Hey, do you want to jump into some horror news?
Yeah, let's go.
I sent you a link to the adaptation of R.L. Stine's Fear Street trilogy
Yeah.
that has just been picked up on Netflix for release next summer. So what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I love R.L. Stine. I mean, he's such a prolific writer. I think he eclipses Stephen King for output, is my understanding. But, I enjoyed his books. I loved the series growing up. Do you remember that? The Goosebumps series? I can't remember if it was
Yeah,
the
Goosebumps,
I
yeah.
used to love that.
I love it. See, Goosebumps is my in on R.L. Stine. I'm not really that aware of other work. Like, I'm not really that aware of Fear Street. I've heard of it.
Yeah,
I
I
am
mean,
aware of it,
Fear
but
Street is for older teenagers. So he's
yes.
done books for all different age groups. And I think the difference with Fear Street is there are real consequences. So for the Goosebumps and Escape from Horrorland books, no one really dies.
No,
There's
of
no
course.
real gore. Whereas it's fantasy. Whereas he made a specific step that in writing Fear Street, there is consequences and there's peril and there's a real risk of danger. So for this to get the film treatment, actually, it's 3 films, I think.
What's really interesting about that actually is this was originally a Fox property. The films were completely made under Fox, and then with Disney, I think last week making it official that 20th Century Fox is no longer a thing. It's now 20th
Mm.
Century Studios. This was kind of one of the last things they were looking to sell off. So yeah, Netflix have picked it up. And what's really interesting about that is my understanding is that it was due to come out this year, and Fox were the original plan was because they filmed 3 films back to back. And the original idea was to release these films a month apart from each other,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
which that's crazy to me. In the cinema environment, you're releasing one film and then the 2 sequels literally follow a month apart. That's
Mm.
yeah, crazy. It's not we're used to like a year or two, right?
This is now the new Netflix world, I suppose.
So do you think this was Fox's attempt at cashing in on that
Yeah.
binge
Yeah,
watching
yeah, yeah.
world to
I
the,
think so.
we give you it as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's not something we've really seen before. So,
Also, it's kind of smart from a marketing point of view because you only have to go big on that first film. You know that the people, as long as that first film's solid, you know that the people that turn up, the people that enjoy it, you don't really need to advertise the second and third.
no.
Granted, you run trailers and stuff like that to bring in your casual cinema goers, but you promote the hell out of that first one and you say the second one's dropping in a month, people are going to go back and watch it. So I think it's quite smart from an outside point of view. I would have really liked to have seen how that was going to play out in the theatres. We're now, as you touched on, getting it on Netflix next summer. I don't really know why they're waiting all the way to next summer. I guess maybe it's just a
No, that
content,
that was that was a bit beyond me as well.
yeah.
Why they're waiting a whole year now? But the only thing I can think of is because Netflix have done limited theatre releases. Perhaps they're still planning to do that.
Yeah, could be. It could be. It could purely be a content thing as well. Like they've got
Mm.
so much content dropping that they don't want this to get lost in the shuffle with, some of the other properties we discussed on this podcast, Netflix, and they're all dropping this year. So maybe
What
it's
what
just a backlog.
I mean, what will be interesting for me is if this is going to be an adult's kind of film. The Jack Black Goosebumps films
Yeah.
were very much aimed at children.
Yeah,
I
very
mean,
much kids films. Very enjoyable.
I still enjoyed them, yeah.
Yeah, I
But
did. Yeah.
I reckon that this is going to be for an older audience, just based on the fact that the source material is for an older audience. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if you've got 15 certificates on them.
I completely agree with that actually. And I believe the lead in all 3 films is Gillian Jacobs, who
Mm.
is. Did you watch Love
Yeah.
on Netflix? Yeah, I really enjoyed that. So she's got her audience on Netflix.
And the thing is, with it's a bit like we spoke before about, you've had the Stephen King adaptations, and
Yeah,
you're getting more Clive Barker adaptations, which
yeah.
we'll come on to. Why not R.L. Stine now as well? I mean, the source material he has is ridiculous. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah,
huge.
it's second to none, isn't it? In terms of,
It's just
like
it's
you said, in terms of
insane.
output.
That's
But
quite interesting. I think for me, that the story I'm really interested in is the last film they're doing, where it starts off. I think it was in like the 1600s, and
yes,
it tells a story about a haunting taking place in present day. However, I find it quite interesting that present day in these films is the 90s. So I would imagine it's
that's
kind of
very true.
like
It's very
possibly
true.
when these books originally come out.
Well, I can imagine, again, I haven't read these books, but just based on the brief synopsis that has been put out with his press release, Fear Street 1 takes place in 1994.
Yeah,
And then, as you said, Fear Street 3 picks up in 1666, which
yeah,
then ties into 1994. So
yes.
1994 seems to be the year that's going to go through definitely number one and number three. And I believe it was like in the 70s that number two was set,
Yeah,
1978,
that's
if I'm
right. That's
thinking
that
about it.
that threw me a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, it threw me a little bit. They're definitely doing a sleepaway camp, isn't it? So it
Yes, yeah, yeah,
sounds a bit Friday the 13th, to
yeah.
be honest. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Really, really interested to see where this goes. Quite excited for it, and I'm quite interested to get other people's points of view on this, especially if any of you guys out there have read the books and are interested in seeing where this goes. Let us know. So next up, I'm gonna let you jump on this one because you sent this to me, but we opened a show a week ago or 2 weeks ago on
Yeah.
the tragic passing of John Saxon. And since then, a few stories have come out. One of these, which has kind of caught attention, certainly caught our attention, is one you sent me. So yeah, jump onto that one, sir.
Yeah, so I mean, first off, I didn't realize he was a writer as well, and he's made this treatment for a prequel to Nightmare on Elm Street. So presumably, he wrote this after the first film. And you can read through it, and you can read through parts of it, and we've got the kind of synopsis for it online, and it sounds fantastic. It sounds like a film I really want to see
It
get
does sound
made.
incredible.
You look at the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and I don't mean this in any way as a criticism because I love it, but it's very tongue in cheek. You know, some of Freddy's lines, you know, you can't help but smile while he's decapitating someone.
Of
But
course.
this sounded like a very serious film, dealing with some very, very controversial and serious themes as well. But I think the masterstroke that he put in, and it sounds like a bit of a knock, me saying that, you know, as an actor, he couldn't possibly be an incredible writer as well, but apparently so, because to put in an angle whereby the film revolves around his character's addiction to alcohol and he gets drugged in the film. So there's a lot of dreamlike sequences, and that's how you bring in the kind of the fantasy element that ties it back to the original films. I think it sounds like a masterstroke, really, and I really hope they do make this film. My only criticism is the title is a bit of a mouthful. How the Nightmare on Elm Street all began.
Yeah, I mean, let's cut that down a little bit.
Yeah, let's just we could go back a little bit.
But yeah,
But
I agree, man. I would love to see this.
exactly as you
I would
said.
love to see him pick this up. They're doing, they're picking up a few old properties
Mm,
from Craven's back catalogue. We've got Scream 5 coming,
yeah,
apparently.
yeah.
So why not another Elm Street film? And instead of completely remaking it, let's try and add to it. Let's try and add to the lore and yeah, go for a prequel. And do you want to touch on the incredible twist of the film? He's innocent, but the did you read I'm not sure if it was in the article you sent me, but I found this out in some other articles. So obviously, John Saxon's treatment plays on that Frederick Krueger is innocent, but there is a real killer out there, and it ties to a real life serial killer, maybe the most famous serial killer of all time, Charles Manson.
Yes, yes.
Man, how fucking good would that be? I would love to see that. I would love. It's just out there. It's so out there. This idea that the film is set in the 60s, and these kids. So Nancy from the first film is in this film, but she's a little girl, and she
Little
has an
girl,
old
yeah,
yeah,
she's
and
about
she has an older
5, I
sister.
think.
Yes, she has an older sister who is the one that kind of kicks this story off. She's sent to therapy, and the doctor that she is sent to is one Frederick Krueger. That's how they meet each other, and that comes into play. But she gets sent to therapy after her dad, John Saxon's character, pulls her out of a hippie commune, which she run
Mm.
away to. That hippie commune, and where a lot of these kids are run to, is the Manson family. And then it later plays out that the murders that they believe Kruger is responsible for has all been orchestrated by Manson. Manson's whole game was to create fear and to create upheaval in society and in suburban America. And I love that it plays on that as well. It
Mm.
takes one of the most fascinating real life serial killers we have, puts him up against one of the most fascinating, if not the most fascinating, fictional serial killers we have, and brings them together in this completely bonkers way. This wouldn't play for all fans. Like I'll say that out the gate, this won't play for all fans. Some fans won't like that, but that's fine too. You know, we've still got the old films, but I just think this is too unique and too interesting not to. Someone's got to have a second go at this. Someone's got to put a screenplay together, haven't they? Come on.
I mean, I hope so, and I could completely see with a bit of CGI de-aging, I could completely see Robert Englund playing a psychiatrist as well.
Oh, that would be
It
great.
would be, you know, completely can see that. I mean, when you said it's not for everyone, how did you feel about the kind of reboot they attempted with Nightmare on Elm Street?
Well, oddly enough, the idea of Freddy being innocent of the crimes he's accused of, I believe
Mm.
they laid the groundwork for that in the remake. I think that was somewhere they was going to go
I
for it.
think they did. I think they did, but I mean, that in itself speaks to me that I didn't hate it, but I don't really remember it.
I
So
didn't really,
it didn't
yeah,
have that bigger
it didn't
impact on
really
me.
work on me. The actor that plays Freddy, I actually quite like him as an actor. I don't think he done an awful job, but the problem is you're going up against,
It's a poison chalice, isn't it?
yeah,
How
one of
can
the most
no one
iconic.
could?
Yes, it's one of the most iconic performances in horror history. How do you can't do that? And what I do like about what he tried doing, and look, I don't think it worked. I do think they failed with that film, but I like that they went a little bit different with it. Is in the performance was a little bit different,
Yes,
and
yeah.
the makeup was very realistic. You know, it
He
was
looked like
based on real burn victims.
yeah, exactly. He looked like genuinely. It
Yeah,
wasn't over the top like grotesque.
yeah,
It looked like someone who had been awfully
yeah.
burnt.
And I
Um,
think there's something in that. I think there's maybe something in that. I just think my problem, and I mean, I'm going back years now. I haven't watched it well, I've only watched it once, but believe my problem with it was they weren't really sure what they wanted to do with it.
mm, mm,
You know, I don't think they fully committed to going balls to the wall completely different. This is a completely different retelling of this story. You know, it was kind of half and half. And I feel like around that time they were doing that with all them films. You had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboots as well.
yeah,
That was kind of the same.
yeah,
You know, it was you don't need it. The problem is them films don't give you enough difference between the originals to warrant watching them versions more than once. You know, because you watch it
yeah,
and you go, well, you're kind of like the old one, but not as good. So
yeah.
I'm just going to go back and watch that.
So I mean, this is kind of very similar to what we was talking about with Child's Play as well,
Yes,
and
yes,
the remake there.
yes,
Um, I think for me, I completely agree. And if you're going to make another Nightmare on Elm Street film, I either want just another chapter of the same with Robert Englund over the top, Freddy Krueger,
yeah,
or I want something completely different.
yeah. I do. Yeah.
And the reboot they did wasn't completely different. They just tried to redo it. And it was okay, but you kind of feel like, what's the point? Whereas this treatment, the prequel, completely different, a whole
Yeah.
nother aspect to it,
Yeah,
and it could be really enjoyable.
in the same way that I have a real soft spot for Rob Zombie's Halloween. Now I know some people hate that, and
Mm,
I'm the original Halloween. I'm a massive, massive fan of the original Halloween. It's the horror film that turned me onto horror films. But what I really, really appreciate with Rob Zombie's Halloween, and what I like about Rob Zombie's Halloween, is he didn't just say, "Okay, I'm gonna do a John Carpenter," because he's not John Carpenter. But what he is he's Rob Zombie. So he's going to do Rob Zombie's version of Halloween. So there was loads of blood, there was loads of guts, it was dirty, It was grimy. It had this whole like the whole first half of that film is something we'd never seen before. With
Yes.
like in detail, Michael growing up in the asylum, his fascination with the masks, his relationship with his mum. I really like that they kind of, it didn't work for everyone, and that's fine too. I don't think everything has to work for everyone. I don't think you have to please everyone, but I like that they just went all out and they were like, you know what, let's do something different. Because you've got Carpenter's Halloween, and you're
Mm,
not going
mm.
to do that and do it better. It's near perfect, if
I
not
mean,
perfect.
that's the thing with yeah. But just got to echo that Halloween is the first proper horror film that I watched, and I love it, and it's what
Yeah,
got me into horror films. But with Rob Zombie, he is an unashamed horror fan, and a Halloween fan, and a John Carpenter fan, and wants to do something that's very much him, but is something that people could be proud of for the franchise as well. I don't really get the criticisms of Rob Zombie when you look at like some of his films. He always gets like really mixed reviews, but I think he's fantastic, and I agree it's not for everyone. But just because it's not for everyone doesn't mean that the film should be panned completely. I remember House of a Thousand Corpses got some really mixed reviews. I
yeah,
think it's brilliant. Really love it. I love
yeah,
most of what he's done. I think
yeah. I'm a
he's
bit. I'm
really
a big.
talented.
I'm a big Rob Zombie fan. I think he's made some incredible films. I think
Mm,
The Devil's Rejects is one of the finest horror films of the last good few years. I would put that up against a lot of other films. I think that film captures a great imagination of what we love about horror films and what would become popular in the coming years with a lot of true crime. The fascination around true crime and crime families and serial killers and
well, this is the thing. How about this? The John Saxon prequel made by Rob Zombie.
oh, people
I, I
would
could
lose their fucking
I
minds.
could I could see it. I could see it already.
I
You
could
know,
see it. I could see it, and I'd watch it. I'd be first in line. I'd do it. People
Sherry
would be
Moon
up in
Zombie's
arms,
in
and
there.
oh
She's
man,
in there
yeah, why not?
somewhere.
Why not?
Just I can.
People would be losing their minds. They'd be uproar. We're probably going to have a few people listen to this, and they're going to comment, telling us we don't know what we're talking about. How dare we suggest Rob Zombie makes a Nightmare on Elm Street film? And you know what? That's fine. That's the thing I don't understand is this idea of everyone has to like everything, or you love a franchise, so then you have to love every film that franchise puts out. Like, why can't they be different? Right? Like Halloween did that. You look at Halloween 3. It done something completely different. I'm not saying we go completely different with a franchise like that,
Yeah,
but look how well that worked out.
I don't really understand. I mean, obviously, I know it is. I don't understand how that is part of the Halloween franchise.
No, I know.
My
I
God,
know.
am I glad it is. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
From what I understand, it was purely a marketing
Yeah,
point of
yeah.
view. It's got nothing to do with Halloween whatsoever. It's purely a marketing point of view of every year they were going to release a Halloween film. They done the first two about Michael, and then they had Season of the Witch, and we're like, well, I guess we can call it Halloween 3. I guess that's what we're going to do. And then with number 4, they were like, oh, we'll just go back to Michael. I think that's why it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why it doesn't make sense because, like, if we had got the two Michael Myers films and then Halloween 3 and 4 were Season of the Witch films, and then 5 and 6 were something, like every two films was a different story, but under the Halloween umbrella, right? So, like, it's just
Mm.
the Halloween umbrella is just the time of year. These are just weird fucking things, man, that happen at this time of year. We kicked off with this serial killer story. Then we've gone into these fucking like demon mask story. Now we're going elsewhere with it. And I think that would have been a really interesting way to take that franchise in the same way that American Horror Story do stuff.
I believe I could be wrong, but I believe John Carpenter was a producer on Halloween 3, so it's not even as if it's completely detached from his world.
It would be interesting to, yeah, actually do a deep dive on that and see what happened. why they, I believe it was a marketing choice, but yeah, it would be interesting to see what the original plan was. Was the plan always
Yeah.
just to do the one film and jump back to the Michael Myers story, or were they going to keep changing it up every year? I don't know. Maybe that's something we look at. It's definitely something we're dive down, man.
And I think just to bring it back to Nightmare on Elm Street, I think obviously Rob Zombie listens to this podcast, so assuming once he hears
Of
this,
course,
if he wants to pick up the rights to the prequel, give us a couple of exec producer credits. Nothing major for the idea.
it would be rude not to.
I
I
mean,
think.
joking aside, I'd love to see it.
Oh, I'd
Whoever
love to
does
see
it,
it.
I'd
Oh,
love to see this. This,
I just want to. Do you know what? Whoever directs it, whoever makes
yeah,
it, I
yeah,
really, really would like to see them bring this back. And the cherry on top would be to see John Saxon's name up on screen once more
well,
with a story credit.
just before we end it there, just to throw a little spanner in the works because it's potentially so different. How about Ari Aster directing?
Oh, cool. We're in for a treat if Ari Aster directs it. We would be in
That'd
for
be
a treat.
something
I
else.
don't know if he'd do a franchise film. He's got a good thing going on, hasn't he?
Yes, he
But
has.
then
Yeah,
also he is the type of filmmaker that I could see just completely coming out of left field and be like, yeah, I'm making a sequel. Why not? I'm doing it.
yeah. I
That would
mean, it's like Jim Jarmusch with The Dead Don't Die. I mean, where did that come from?
straight out, yeah, just out of nowhere. Yeah, crazy man. Right, so let's jump into our indie film spotlight, saying that we
Mm,
started last week with your
yep.
friend's trailer. So this week is a trailer I sent you
Yes.
called Cruiser. Was kind of blown away by it because you see a lot of indie film trailers, and yeah, sometimes they don't always jump out at you the way you hope they do. We're going to leave a link below for this one, so definitely go and check it out, guys. But yeah, so off the top, man, what were your thoughts?
Two things that really struck me. Well, before that, I mean, it looks great. It looks really well done. But the two things that struck me is it's quite rare to see a trailer that just focuses on one aspect of the film. And from what I gather, it's this police cruiser who seems to take it upon himself to murder people. That seems to be the crux of the story. But with most trailers, you're getting little bits of the story, little scenes, some clever editing that never
Yeah,
kind of comes to pass when you see the film.
yeah.
But this is just straight up what it does on the tin. It's just showing you what the film is all about from start to finish. And that was the first thing that struck me. The second thing that struck me was I thought, again, this isn't a criticism. I felt like I'd seen some of those shots before, and it's funny because you mentioned it earlier, and it's the 2003 Texas Chainsaw remake with Sheriff Hoyt and some of the stuff he does to the kids in the car,
Oh,
um,
right, yeah.
where he
Okay.
makes them do press ups and then he's beating them and he's like he's got them lined up and he's holding his gun at them. It just felt like that to me. It just felt like
Yes.
someone had, and obviously I could be wrong. Someone's taken that concept of, this rogue uh, police officer, and just extrapolated it into a film in its own right. Um, yeah, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's what struck me about it, and it
No, I think
seems
you're
like a really
definitely,
novel idea to me. I look forward to
yeah, I
seeing
think you're
that one.
definitely along the right lines there. What brought this to my attention was it's, clearly heavily inspired by police brutality
Mm,
and a lot of, what we're seeing mainly in America at the minute, and a lot of dash cam and body cam footage that's coming out of, the horrible acts that a small minority of police officers are committing, and I think it is important to say that because, from people I know in America and people that know police officers in America, the majority of police officers are not like this, and they too are rightfully disgusted. Unfortunately, just like anything, it is the small minority of arseholes that gets the press
mm.
and gets our attention. So I like that it's touching on that, but I do also like, and I know this is going to be controversial, but I do like that they're going full horror with this. And the reason I like that is I feel that it makes the film a lot more consumable.
Mm,
And in doing so, the hope would be that the message of police brutality would reach a lot more people. I think if sometimes there is a place for just presenting your idea or your story just completely straight, so with this one, police brutality, making a film that is a very straight, hard drama, really, about police brutality, and there are a few films out there like that to do that very, very well. But there is a certain audience for them films. You're not going to get a lot of people just throw them films on, and they're very heavy films to watch. But I feel with something like this, if you were to, or put it this way, what I really like with this is there's an angle. There's an angle that brings you in. There's an angle that brings viewers in. In the same way, maybe to a lesser extent, but in the same way Spike Lee did with Black Klansman.
There's obviously comparisons to be made with police brutality, and if we assume that that is the message that's being looked at in the film, then the thing that concerns me is I think the filmmakers have a moral obligation to end the film with no kind of hint at a sequel or anything like that. What I mean by that is if you look at, like gangster films, like Football Factory or
Well,
Godfather Property or whatever it may be, and you go through these films and you're glorifying violence, there has to be a penalty at the end
of
for
course it
those
does. Yeah,
people.
of course it
So
does.
that's quite strange in horror. You don't get that concept in horror. But if this is a horror with a serious message about police brutality, then this film has to end with him ending. There can't be any like final scare. He's got away. Has he got away? He's come back. It can't have. For me, there has to be a very definite. It's over. It could be as much as, he's arrested and pays for his crimes, or what might be powerful is like you said, with the previous film, a montage of real
Yeah,
life brutality to kind
I
of
completely agree.
juxtapose with the fiction.
I completely agree, and I think when you're handling subject matter like this, do you know what? Even if that wasn't originally where you were going with this film,
Mm.
because of the day and age that you have made this film and you're releasing this film, I think it would be a little bit tone deaf not to
Yeah,
address
yeah.
the
I
the
mean,
real world concerns
when I
going
when I
on.
when I saw this trailer today, I'll be honest with you, that didn't dawn on me at all. But now you've said it, it's
Yeah,
obvious. Yeah, and whether they meant that or not, that's what I think people will see. A
of
fair
course, of
proportion of
course.
people will see that.
Yeah, not
Um,
everyone will, but I think enough people will where you do have to say something about it. You don't have to knock people over the head with it, but you have
yeah,
to, like you said, at the end of the film, I think there has to be that full stop. So again, like we've kind of been doing with a lot of these, is again, I think this is something to keep an eye on. Definitely something we'll watch when it comes out. And do you know what? I think this will be one that we'll kind of deep dive and review because I think there's a lot to unpackage in a film
Do
like
you
this.
do you do you know anything about the people behind this, or when it's out, or
No,
anything like that?
August 25th. So yeah, I believe that's VOD. It will be a VOD release. So yeah, we'll definitely check back in,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think it's definitely one we'll review and we'll cover, and we'll kind of touch on them points again that we spoke about because yeah, I think the film is gonna live and breathe on addressing those issues. Like I said, even if that wasn't your initial goal, how can you ignore that in this day and age?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely, I think it is good. I think as long as they stick to their guns with a message and a consequence, I think it could be really good.
All right, dude. Let's move on to slightly more pleasant topics. I say slightly more pleasant because we are moving on to something called Books of Blood. For anyone that does know, we're talking about Clive Barker's Book of Bloods, which is getting a film. It's a film, right? Not a series.
It's a single film, yeah,
Yeah, single
single
film
film.
that will be released on
Um,
Hulu. So that's for
so
the US. I have no idea where we're getting it over here. Hopefully, Amazon or someone will pick it up.
I'm sure most people know, but for those who don't, Clive Barker, of course, Hellraiser, among others. The point being that Hellraiser is based on the short story The Hellbound Heart from Books of Blood,
Yep.
which was a collection of short stories. I think it was actually there's a couple of the Books of Blood, and of course Candyman as well, a short story from there.
Yeah.
This is a short story. Maybe I don't know which short story it is. that's being
See,
used.
that's the really interesting part. They haven't said.
No, and,
They
and
haven't said. I believe it's two of them though.
and there's going to be some original. I mean, it's obviously it's an original take, but there's going to be some original content there as well, I believe.
Oh right, okay, interesting. I didn't see that part. That will be interesting. That would be good. I guess the way you tie them together would have to, you'd have to come up with that off the top.
It's
But yeah, I
probably
think it's
the
really interesting
overarching
though.
thing, isn't it? Is the overarching thing is going to be the original? I would imagine.
Yeah, like Chris touched on, for those that don't know, with Books of Blood, is basically anything you know of Clive Barker has come from these books. They're all short stories that were then adapted, like Chris touched on, Hellraiser, Candyman, Midnight Meat Train, Lord of
Mm,
Illusions. They're all from these books. I believe there's 6 books, maybe. I could be wrong. I believe there's 6 volumes of Books of Blood, and there's about 4 or 5 stories in each. So yeah, I haven't read them all. I've read a couple. Very, very good. What I have read, they were turned into comics a good few years ago, which I read, which were really good as well. It was really nice seeing them done with that. So yeah, I'm very interested to see where they take this one. Did you watch I believe it was like 2008, something like that, where they did release a film called Clive Barker's Book of Blood? Did you ever see that one?
no, I don't think I did. It rings a bell.
Yeah, it
I don't
wasn't.
think.
That was based on 2 stories, I believe, out of the book. But it wasn't from. I watched it once. I never went back. It wasn't very good from what I remember. So I'm really, really hoping that they do pick this up and really run with it and do a little bit more with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Clive Barker's a genius. I think
I
the
completely
breadth
agree.
of works and original characters he's come up with that have become ingrained uh, in our consciousness is incredible. The thing that concerns me slightly, I feel like I've said this a lot, but no disrespect to him, but it's been produced by Seth MacFarlane,
It
which
is.
leaves me a little questioning as to what
That
it's going to be like.
really threw me off.
Yeah.
When I first read it, I actually done a double take because
Yes, so did I. I thought there must be another one. It must be a different guy.
I read Seth MacFarlane, and for some reason my brain said Todd McFarlane, the guy responsible for Spawn and stuff like that. And I
But
was
that
like,
would
well,
make sense.
yeah, I was like, that kind of makes sense because he's really into horror and stuff. That kind of
Yeah,
makes sense. And then when you keep reading, they obviously bring up the producers again. They're like Seth
yeah,
MacFarlane. I'm like, what, the Family Guy dude?
yeah.
What do you mean?
I mean, as far as I'm aware, he hasn't done any kind of horror. I could be wrong. I mean, I know his career's become massive beyond Family Guy,
Oh.
singing and animation and films and acting. He's produced.
Well, it's all comedy though, isn't it?
Yeah, what's the Orville? I've never seen it.
I've never watched the
Because
Orville.
so is that serious? Because he's involved with that as well.
Oh, is
So
he?
that could be
Okay.
because I know the Orville is a fairly recent thing that he's worked on, so it might be a more natural progression than we think.
See, that's quite interesting because the director of this film
Yes.
is the director, or maybe one of the directors, I'm not sure, of the Orville. Interesting. Interesting. I really hope we get this over here. Like I said, this is, it's a Hulu original, which is America only. So hopefully Amazon, maybe Netflix will pick it up. I'm not really sure where the Hulu stuff goes. I know Disney have a big stake in Hulu. I think they're the biggest shareholder in Hulu, but I doubt this is going on Disney Plus.
No, well, we
Yeah,
don't know. It's got Seth MacFarlane. It could be a
it could do.
musical.
Yeah,
He
could
likes a
do.
bit of crooning. I wonder if what kind of involvement Clive Barker himself has had in it. That'd be interesting as well.
From what I read, he's a producer, but I wonder if that's just in the capacity of it's based on,
Yeah, it could just be a nod, isn't it?
yeah, an executive producer credit because it's based on his work, really.
Yeah, I mean, Seth MacFarlane's executive producer, so
Very
what
true.
his overall involvement is. I mean,
Very
he's
true.
not directing, not writing. We don't really know, but he's obviously the big name there that's attached to
He
it.
is, yeah. He's the big name that's kind of got this one made, hasn't he? Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, love Clive Barker's stuff, so I'm really interested in it.
Yeah, I'm a huge Clive Barker fan, so I will eat this up. I mean, I'll if we get this, however I can watch it, I'll be there. If we've got to rent it, VOD, whatever it is, I'll be there first day checking this out. But yeah, man, let's see where this goes, and hopefully we find out what stories
Yeah, but
are
that'd be
involved.
good as well.
Well, it's not going to be any of the big ones, is it?
No, no.
Definitely not. I mean, we've got Candyman coming.
Well,
They're
this is the
working on
thing.
a new
It's
Hellraiser film.
not only are they working on a new Hellraiser film, a Hellraiser series as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it'd be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it. I actually hope they go with some of the lesser known stories.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, and really, really make something out of them. Create some new legends. That would be really interesting, and then hopefully expand upon that. I think that is the idea of this. I think if this is successful, this is a jumping off point for a couple of these. Or I wouldn't be surprised if we get one of these every year or two.
Well, I mean, they've done it with so apparently the new Hellraiser series isn't really about Pinhead, Doug Brady's character. It's more expanding the mythology and looking at some of the other aspects of it. So I don't believe you would expect to see Pinhead and the other original Cenobites there.
Well, this is the interesting thing about Hellraiser. Hellraiser, in my opinion, has never been about Pinhead.
Yeah,
It's never about Pinhead. It's about the human characters, and that's what the sequels, especially some of the horrible modern sequels, completely lose because they make it all about Pinhead. That isn't actually that interesting.
1 and 2 had
Really,
a
it's
great
not.
balance.
Yeah, because it's about the characters, it's about the human
Yeah,
characters, it's about their, it's that pleasure and pain thing.
yeah,
It's that how far are you willing to push yourself? How are you going to take the shortcut? Are you going to take the cheap way out? If you're given the option, do you take the shortcut and face the consequences as we see in those films? And the other thing I really like about the Hellraiser films, which kind of gets missed a lot, is there's a line in, I think it's the first film, where I believe it is Pinhead that says, whoever opens the box could face a different reality. Like, we're your reality. So I find it then interesting that then
interesting.
all the films,
Mm,
it's only them we see.
mm,
Because the idea is that they show up because they're what's required at that time.
mm.
But it could be anyone. And then in one of the other films, you kind of get a hint at it where is it at the start of number 2 or 3 where it's kind of like a wooden cylinder that's got loads of faces in it, and Pinhead is just
That's
one of the faces.
yeah, that's 3.
Right. Yeah, Pinhead is just one of the faces. So I think it gives you the whole idea of what that could be,
Yeah, yeah,
and where that could. And also the idea we've only ever seen pain come out of that box.
yeah.
But there is the idea that pleasure could also come out of that box. So let's explore that. Again, let's do something completely fucking different. Some people are not going to like it. Some people are going to be like, where the hell's Pinhead? And you could have Pinhead in it, but it
I
shouldn't
wouldn't. I
be
wouldn't
about
mind. No, exactly. I wouldn't mind seeing him pop up as
Yeah,
a kind of, just to tie it back.
yeah.
Like you say, his actual screen time is incredibly limited in the first film and even the second film. And I believe in the Hellbound Heart, he's kind of only briefly mentioned,
Yeah.
yeah, in description.
But that's what makes him so interesting.
But it's the look of him. That's what people and Hollywood has captured, isn't it?
But if you see it too much, it becomes boring.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's what people do too much of now. If you hit us over the head with your best imagery, like all the time, especially like if you start with it out the gate, then what the fuck am I like sitting through this film for?
yeah,
Like you're waiting to that point, right? You're waiting to watch your main characters descend to that despicable level where then Pinhead shows himself,
yeah.
and then facing the consequences of that. Like you said, if you actually go back and watch that first, they're not in it that much.
No.
And they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be either. You know, you need the good, compelling characters outside of that to make it work. And that's what Frank was in the first film.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, let's see where they go with this, man. I'm really, really interested to see what they do with this, and hopefully give us some more compelling characters that have yet to be adapted.
Speaking of compelling characters,
Good segue, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Good segue.
It's creepy clip of the week, and
It is, mate. It is
I
time.
thought I'd go something completely different this week.
Oh, I love it. I love what you said.
Brilliant. I'm glad. Had you seen it before?
No. Obviously, I'm a massive fiend.
Well versed.
Yes.
Just as I'll just give a little bit of a background before we get your thoughts on
Yes,
it. And
please
this
do.
is Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda, as his actual name, professional wrestler. Absolutely fantastic, in my opinion. Came up with the character of Bray Wyatt, this very creepy, like Southern American bayou cult leader with his Wyatt family. I thought it was an incredible idea. Don't think it was given a fair run. Poor booking, so it kind of fell apart. And he's come back with this new character, this very lovable kind of Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, Firefly Funhouse, and then the counter that point to that is a very dark character called the Fiend. Now the clip that I've brought in this week is, and I don't know who's made it. They've turned imagery of Bray Wyatt and the Fiend into an It Chapter 2 trailer. So it's got some of the sound effects and the music from It Chapter 2, and they've created a trailer with the Fiend. I thought it was great. Scott, what did you think of it?
Oh, honestly, mate, I loved it. I was grinning ear to ear. I was grinning like the Fiend mask the whole way through this. Because I never know what you're going to send, right? And for those that you that don't know, Chris literally sends me his creepy link of the week on the day we're going to record this show. So I have no idea what he's going to send. And you send it over to me, and as soon as I click on it, I see WWE Bray Wyatt the Fiend, It Chapter 2 trailer or whatever it says. And I'm like, okay, all right, you've got me. You had me on Bray Wyatt, And I love. Do you know what? We'll get into the trailer in a little bit. I love this character. I love
It's fantastic.
Bray Wyatt as a character, and this has got nothing to do with wrestling, right? We're not going to talk about wrestling match or anything. We're just going to talk about character. The character of Bray Wyatt being this like cult leader, that the reason he's so compelling, as all good villains should be, is he believes what he is doing is right. He is not evil or bad for the sake of being evil or bad. In his mind, he is the good guy. The same way, the reason Thanos was such a good villain in the MCU or in the comics is Thanos believes he's the good guy, and he believes the Avengers are the bad guys. He is doing what is right, and that is what Bray Wyatt believes. Bray Wyatt believes, as a cult leader, that he sees the world for what it really is. He sees our heroes, in this case wrestling heroes, for the fakes that they really are, and he is going to restore balance to the WWE. It is the greatest horror film that has never been made, and the origins of all of this are in horror. The character of Bray Wyatt is inspired by many cult and real world figures. He's actually also inspired by some old wrestling gimmicks that again were very horror based.
Yep.
And then he, like Chris said, he went away for a bit, he come back, he comes back as this kind of the cult leader thing's gone. He's now this Mr. Rogers kids funhouse presenter who presents his own show called the Firefly Funhouse, which is completely demented, and it's played as if it's completely demented for the pure fact of he plays it completely straight.
It sounds, when you talk about it, I mean, I know it's not, you know it's not, but the Firefly Funhouse sounds shit. It sounds like that's ridiculous.
Yes.
But it's not. He plays it completely, he plays it as if he's a kid's entertainer, completely believing in what he's doing. But then in every episode, if we call it, of the Firefly Funhouse, there's always a very creepy element to it. When he looks at the camera, he talks about the voices in his head and the fire and some of the pictures he's got up on the wall. Because let's not forget, it's not a completely new character.
No.
It's a different incarnation of Bray Wyatt. He's still Bray Wyatt. It's just a Bray Wyatt who's kind of collapsed into.
Well, that's why it's so good, because this new version and the Fiend, they are the result of the psychotic break of the old Bray Wyatt. And this is why the man behind the gimmick in my opinion, is a genius and is
He's
the
fantastic.
smartest storyteller in wrestling, and I would love to see him do more.
Even if you've got a really good wrestler, they can often struggle with their mic skills. That's not the
Yes.
case with Bray Wyatt. He is so good. He is a genuinely convincing actor. He's so good on the mic.
He's
Um,
too good, in all
yeah,
honesty. He's too good, and in my opinion, that's why he went the way he went. He should have, been pushed to the moon and
yeah.
become the next big thing. And if he had, I feel like the WWE would be in a much better place than
I
they are
mean,
now. But the problem is he's too good of a speaker.
when
So,
I don't know how you feel, but when he spoke in the bayous and the swamps, when he spoke, I just felt like, oh, sign me up. Where do I sign,
oh,
Bray?
I love it. I love it. But that's the problem. The problem is he's too good, and they have. There's hardly anyone that can do it on that level. So the problem is when you need people to speak, you don't have people as good as him. So you just constantly put him out there every week.
Yeah,
The problem with what they were doing with him is they were putting him out there every week, and he should never be that type of character. He's a special character.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
we were just saying about Pinhead, right? You don't put Pinhead in every frame of your film because he's the special attraction.
yeah.
Bray Wyatt should be the same. He's the special attraction. You use him sparingly, and if you do
Like
use
the
him every
Undertaker.
right, exactly. Again, another great character based in horror. Again, this is why I think this works for this podcast. And to really bring it around to horror, I'm sure everyone listening is very well aware of a horror legend called Tom Savini. And
Yeah,
Tom Savini is a big wrestling fan, and he is responsible for the mask that
and
you
what a
will
job
see in
he's
this
done.
trailer. Oh, it's an incredible mask. Absolutely incredible. It's absolutely amazing. So to get onto this trailer, I love this trailer because as now I think if you don't know any of this, you have no idea what the bloody hell we've just been talking about for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
You're gonna go and you're still gonna enjoy this trailer. I think it's actually that good. It's really well put together. I just think the storytelling between Bray Wyatt and then Finn Balor within this trailer. The storytelling was done so well that you could easily edit this into a trailer anyway. But then whoever has made this trailer has gone above and beyond and done
yeah. It's a
such an
great
incredible
job.
job. I think it really works. And I think you'll watch this if you have no idea, you have no interest in wrestling, no interest in that. I just think as a horror fan with this type of character, someone that's so compelling, you're going to enjoy this. Now, if you do like wrestling or you are aware of this character and you have seen something to do with this character, the reason I love this trailer so much is it kind of confirms everything I've thought ever since this character launched, which is WWE Studios, who are a film company for those that don't know,
Who have done horror.
right? Who have done horror. You need to make a film out of this. Like this is how do you not do this? It
I
doesn't,
think.
and I think it can work in the context of wrestling as well. Like as in the film doesn't have to be anything about wrestling, but that's the great thing with Bray Wyatt and the Fiend
Yeah,
is that it doesn't have to be just about wrestling because the idea of the Fiend is righting the wrongs
yeah.
of everyone that has wronged Bray Wyatt in the past.
The character has very little to do with wrestling. Very little to do with it at all. Um,
Hardly anything to do. In all honesty, it's if you go back to WrestleMania and the match he had with Cena, which wasn't a wrestling match, it was a short film, if you want. It
yeah,
was an experimental short film. But what I love about that is, for me, wrestling is an opera. Wrestling is entertainment, and I think there can be many different forms of that. There can be great, athletic, insane wrestling matches where these men and women are doing stuff we can only dream of on a physical level.
and that's
Or
the
you have this, right?
yeah. I mean, and the thing with the Fiend is he doesn't actually wrestle in the traditional sense. He goes. It is very much like the villain from a horror film. He goes into the ring. He gets beat up, or people try and beat him up, but they can't hurt him. Then suddenly they do hurt him. They think they've put him down. And he comes back for one last scare, and he's up on his feet again. Like the invincible silent killer, like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, this whole character is based on that. And again, I think this is why this clip does work really well for horror fans. And I think what's really nice about it is I think actually quite a few listeners out there that I interact with on Twitter, I don't think there's a few of you that actually watch wrestling. So you might be going in totally blind to this. And if you are, I still think this is really, really going to work I really,
I'd be really interested to know how non-wrestling fans react to this.
I agree. I agree. But I genuinely think it's so interesting from the point of view of my wrestling intake has cut down dramatically. And in terms of the show that Bray Wyatt is on, he is on a show called WWE SmackDown, which is on Friday nights. And I pretty much exclusively tune in to watch the Bray Wyatt bit, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same.
Yeah,
Exactly
that's
the
it.
same.
Do you know what? There are weeks, like last week, where I don't even watch a show. I just wait until they upload his part on their YouTube channel,
Yep.
and then I just watch it on their YouTube channel because he is doing something that no one else is doing, and it's so damn good.
I'm
I would love
disappointed
to.
now because we're not going to see the film.
I, we've got to. We have to in the next few years. Yeah, we'll leave it there, guys. Please let us know what you think of that trailer. Either drop a comment down below. Please like this video if you enjoyed us rambling on today. Thank you for tuning in again, guys. We really appreciate this. We're kind of blown away by the love and support we've had in these early days.
That's been brilliant.
Yeah, from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of Chris' heart, we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Until next week, Horror Hounds, stay safe.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.